Hairspray. Why did the baby chick cross the road? To meet up with her peeps. What did the financial advisor who was born on Easter say to all his clients? You can put all your eggs in one basket. I made that last one up. That was really bad, wasn't it? So I wanted to give this talk in conjunction with Planet Unity and Earth Day, which is coming up this Saturday. And I hope you can all make it to Planet Unity and Earth Day. Friday night we're doing some music. And we're going to be having some snacks and drinks and things like that for all of us. And then Saturday, of course, is our big Earth Day celebration. We're going to have a 5K run. We're going to be doing all sorts of activities for kids, for adults. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you can come out on Saturday for our Planet Unity. Okay. Let's go ahead and get going with the talk. So my book is on carbon Dharma. It's by Dr. Sailesh Rao. So how do we address others who might not share the same passion we do for healing the planet and taking the necessary steps that will be required for rebirthing our planet? This talk comes from the first 3 chapters of a book called Carbon Dharma, and I've got it right here. It sets the foundation of how we might want to look at ourselves in order to be more effective and loving in our own lives. We cannot shame others into changing, as this is an outward approach that has at best only temporary impact. The true impact is when we can inspire first ourselves and then others to create an inner foundation that stays with us permanently, that is rooted in truth and love. Only then can we make a difference. Love is the key. It's always the key. This book was written by a friend of mine whom I met at Unity Village back in October. We were at a conference together. And I sat with him for most of the conference, and I got to know him quite well. As a person, I also watched his lectures and had close discussions with him over this 3 to 4 day period. And this is the first of his 2 books. Sailesh grew up in India, and his background is Hindu. He has lived in the United States and received his higher education in America, obtaining his doctorate degree at Stanford University. He's an engineer by trade and was most known for being instrumental in improving the internet to where it is now. He worked on increasing the functionality and speed of the computer chip. And he has given lectures at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and at MIT. He became a millionaire when his company, Level 1 Communications, was bought by Intel in 1999. So following the sale of his company and given life security in 2005, his sons turned teenage, and that's when the real trouble started beginning for him. His kids were getting bad grades. They were using alcohol, drugs, even in one of them attempted suicide. And he knew that something was seriously going wrong with his life and was told by a higher force to wake up. After going to a lecture on An Inconvenient Truth and then later working with Al Gore, he immediately changed his life's passion and began his quest to do his part in saving the planet. His first 2 books are a result of his personal life's journey. He is by far one of the most spiritual persons that I've met. This book and Sailesh's writings deal with our planet, our environment, our health, and improving and healing our carbon footprint. Dharma in Sanskrit means right action. He uses the metaphor of metamorphosis of caterpillars and butterflies to describe where we've been as a world culture and to where we need to be in order to survive. Carbon Dharma calls for our occupation of the earth as butterflies to undo the damage done by the human species in its present caterpillar stage of existence. This book is intended for the youth of this world who are facing some of the gravest challenges ever faced. It is also intended for all those who love the youth of this world. We're not going to be around here forever, are we? Someone's going to be taking our place. So, let's get a little bit of opinion here. What do you think of the state of the world regarding climate change? Any personal thoughts on that? I can give you a little bit on what I have, but if you have anything, feel free. I think Gwenda's going to be running the microphone here.
Greg Braden is a scientist, a mystic, and his take is that part of it is created by humans. I know the city of San Diego raised 10 degrees because of the highways, all the roads that absorb the... Yeah. But he also says that it's because of our position in the cycles of the universe, that because we're at a cycle where we're close to the sun, and so it's a natural thing that has been occurring forever and ever, and so part of it is just the natural characteristic of the planetary system. But there are things that we can do to not speed it up or to slow it down because of the carbons and the things that we're doing as a race.
Yeah, got it. I know I used to travel up to the Maritime Provinces in Canada every summer, and I would spend weeks up there, and I did it for many, many years, and I just loved to go camping along the ocean. And one of the things that was very prominent in both Nova Scotia and especially Newfoundland was that I camped along near and spent a lot of time in fishing villages on the coast. When I was going up there in the 80s, these were live, very vibrant fishing communities. And you'd see the fishing trawlers go out on a regular daily basis and then come in at night. When I went up there back, maybe 20 years ago, that was all gone. Everything had stopped. There were no more fishing trawlers going out. The fish were gone. In fact, when I was talking with people in Newfoundland, 40% of the population of that province moved out of Newfoundland because the fishing industry was totally annihilated. The fish were gone, and most of that fish were cod, by the way. But you could see the old relics of the old fishing boats. You could see all the docks, all fishing equipment, but there were no fish. Canada had to make a rule: there is no more fishing, because we have to save what little we have left in order to restock these fish that have been taken. Now, it was not the fault of the fishermen that depleted the fish. Can anybody guess what it was that took the fish away?
Plastic?
No. It was corporate fishing trawlers, international corporate fishing trawlers that would take these big wings on these big ships, and they would scoop the bottom of the ocean, and they would totally take the fish. They were gone. So the individuals who had fished all their lives could not do that anymore because it was taken away by corporate interests. When I would go up to, good morning, when I'd go up to Alaska, and I would go up there for years on end, the glaciers are melting, they're going, and they're going to be gone. I mean, we are not going to have glaciers in a very short while. If you go out west, last year Sue and I went on our honeymoon and followed the Colorado River, and if you go out to Lake Mead now, Lake Mead was built as a dam capturing the Colorado River water, and this was built back in the 60s, I believe. The biggest, reservoir of drinking water for the West. Lake Mead is almost, it's down to the lowest it's ever been in its existence. aquifers that we've made. We've been irrigating the crops. California has all the crops and everything. We are depleting the aquifers to the point now where in so many years it's going to be gone. Obviously, we have greater storms. Soon I just went to Dauphin Island. I don't know if you know where that's at, but it's on the coast of Alabama. Just last year, we were there, and there had just been 6 feet of water that covered the whole western part of the island, where there were, I think, 1,200 and some residents that were there. You couldn't get around because of the extreme number of hurricanes that have been hitting that island, and just not that they haven't had hurricanes before, but they've had so many more in the last few years that have really devastated that area. So these are a few things that I'm seeing anyway that we're dealing with climate change anyway, something a little bit different than we've ever seen in our past. So Reverend Brian D. Mclaren, one of our most prestigious Christian writers, is a close follower of Silesh, and has written that both of them agreed on 4 things. The world is in trouble, and it's in big trouble. The big trouble relates to our relationship with the environment. We can't make the changes needed without a deep spiritual change. And our religions and spirituality offer powerful and profound resources to help us experience that change, so we can be converted from being part of the global problem to being part of the solution. So our political system is broken. Politicians whom we elect to make changes needed are rewarded by processes that can exploit short-term, hot-button issues to get elected and re-elected. Political processes punish political leaders who try to deal with long-term issues like climate and the environment. The conclusion of Silesh, McLaren, and many others is the only way will come about will be through worldwide grassroots spiritual movement that focus first on changing hearts and then focus on changing behavior. Then we can move on to changing other policies. The philosopher Anthony de Mello stated, the trouble with people is that they are busy fixing things that they don't even understand. It never strikes us that things don't need to be fixed. They need to be understood. So Silesh postulates, if we want to change the world, we need to begin with ourselves. Through observation, through understanding, with no interference or judgment on your part. And it's hard to do, isn't it? We're all judging creatures, aren't we? I find myself constantly looking at myself and the judgments that I create. And I'm sure you guys don't, but it's just something that I do. But what we judge, we can't understand. That's what Silesh is saying. What we judge, we can't understand. Instead, observe without a desire to change what is. If you desire to change what is into what you think should be, you no longer understand. Good morning, Al. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning. The day you attain a posture like that, you will experience a miracle. Change will happen. You will not have to bring it about. As the light of awareness settles upon the darkness, whatever is evil will disappear. Whatever is good will prosper. Homo sapiens is Latin for wise man. Dr. Rao states that we are in the caterpillar stage of development, what with a voracious appetite for consumerism, a waste-producing eating machine that has munched through most of the complex life in the ocean and half the world's forests. As a species, we are well past due for Homo sapiens to grow into its pupa stage and emerge as butterflies and begin undoing the destruction wrought earlier. For life only supports that which supports life. A dominant species that voraciously consumes life and never regenerates it will eventually consume all life and consequently itself. So, if we do nothing, does anybody have any thoughts on what might occur? Go ahead, Elby.
There was a Harvard study done about 30 years ago that basically said by about 2030, we would not have any fuel left. We would be back to horses and buggies.
Okay.
And every couple of years, they go back and check that research, and we're still on target
Still on the path.
for not having enough resources to sustain our way of life at all.
Great. Thanks, LB. Anybody else? Did you know that? Go ahead, Al.
Homo sapien is a bug?
No, Homo sapien is actually who we are. And it's Latin for wise man. But we are kind of bugs, aren't we? Did you know that 97% of the population of tigers is now gone? 97% of the population of tigers is now gone. And it took, I think, the last 50 to 100 years it took to wipe them out. Now, we have 3% of what was the original population of a steady population of tiger population.
Repeat that, please.
Okay, 97% of what the population of tigers were 100 years ago anyway are gone. 97%. So we have 3% left of what we used to have. How long is it going to take before we wipe out that last 3%? These are tigers, folks. We write story. Tigers have been in our lore for forever. We are doing something that I don't consider is very healthy. Okay. How about the world's fish? We've overfished the oceans to where they're more than half depleted now. And as I was telling my story a little bit earlier, in Canada when I went up there, even 20 years ago, the fishing industry is gone. And they say it's going to be gone in at least our lifetime. And who knows when they're going to get back. Now, last time I was there, they allowed individuals to go out and a family could catch 6 fish for their family. They couldn't sell them. It's not a commercial thing anymore. This used to be their main industry. This is what supported their families. It's what made it a vibrant place, and that's gone now. So things are a little different than they used to be. Paul Hawken, in his book Blessed Unrest, showed that humanity has begun its transformation from a caterpillar stage to a butterfly stage. Literally millions of non-government organizations, including that's who we are, Unity. We're doing a Planet Unity, right? We're going to be focusing on the environment. We're going to be focusing on things that are happening with the environment and how we can change it. Paul Hawken is saying it really takes those non-government organizations to get the ball going that are dedicated to healing the earth and healing the divisions within the human society that's sprung up around the world as an immune response to the ravages of our modern industrial civilizations. Okay, it's commonly accepted lore that human beings have no choice but to be caterpillars, and from this, it logically follows that the sheer number of human beings on the planet is the primary reason for the destruction that we're inflicting on the planet. We are led to believe that all of our environmental problems are mainly due to human overpopulation. Okay, in 1800, the human population reached 1 billion. By 1900, it was 1.6 billion. By 2000, it's 6.1 billion. Does anybody know what it is today? We're over 7 billion right now, okay? Since 1800, it's marked a 6-fold increase. In 200 years, human population is projected to top 10 billion by 2100, according to United Nations projections. Human consumption, on the other hand, has increased by a factor of 64 within the same time frame. Vast numbers of humans are living like the nobility of the past, eating exotic foods from around the world and traveling vast distances frequently. World consumption in constant dollars increased from 400 billion in 1800 to over 25 trillion in 2000. However, there's a huge inequity in the consumption. The top 20% of people on Earth are consuming 83% of the world resources. The bottom 20%, a little over 1%. It's a 64-fold difference in the impact or footprint. This sets up what's called an Alphonse-Gaston act between the top and the bottom economic tiers, with both sides talking past each other as they view the world from their narrowest perspective. The people in the top 20% see overpopulation as the problem. The people in the bottom percent say, hey, quit consuming so much. So, how much political weight do you have? How much political weight do I have? How about the shelterless? How about the shelterless people that we have coming here? How much political weight do they have? Who do you think has the political weight? I'll just throw that out there. You don't have to answer. You probably know. Remember the trickle-down theory? The more business, the greater those underneath prosper. Coal mines that used to require thousands of laborers can now be operated with just a few people and giant earth-moving equipment. Factories used to require thousands of people and are now operated by automated processes with only dozens of people running the switches. Productivity gains improve profit margins for corporations but reduce employment for humans. It is now consumption that drives economic growth in our current paradigm. Now we have a $20 billion a year industry to store overflow stuff. We consume, we consume, we consume. How many of you have seen a few new storage units out there? I see them, they're popping up around us where we live on the west side of town. I can name a half a dozen new ones, and there were already a lot to begin with, right? I've never been able to figure that out. You pay, I don't know how much it is a month to store stuff for month after month after month, and you would think, oh my gosh, do we really need all that? But it's a booming business, $20 billion a year. This standard formula for economic progress is running out of steam. It's up to us to recognize that we need to make a shift in the way we live. The most important people are the 20 to 30-year-olds today, for they need to become butterflies. Now remember, Silesh, is, he's given an example of how we were caterpillars, how caterpillars are eating everything in sight, and we need to be turning into butterflies who are giving back, okay?
What is the average age of people in this class?
Average age of people in the class, I couldn't tell you. I would say
55, 60?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
How do we, I'm thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 kids, and I have grandchildren.
Yeah.
I have great-grandchildren. How do we, those are the people that need to be educated.
Those are the people that need to be educated, and it's up to us to do that, to educate.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with Sue and with many others many times. How do we get the population to be younger? Now, we do have a number of people in our church that are in their 40s, which is great.
Yeah.
But, I think Sue and I we were just talking yesterday about, wow, how many people we've lost in the last, few years, just because of age, because of retirement, moving away. And now we have replaced a lot of people, and the people that are coming in are vibrant, and they're just loving, what we're doing here. But it's a problem unless you are a mega church. The church population is going down, 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 down everywhere. I mean, it's not just here. It's everywhere. It's universal. So how do we get people coming back to our religious, our spiritual centers? I'm not quite sure. I was listening to TV this morning. Less than 48% of people are even a member of a church anywhere. So it's, it is a problem. LB, did you have a question?
No, that
Okay. That's bothering you? If you want to, go ahead and move. It's, because I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, we either have to change or we have to face intense suffering and the possibility of a major mass extinction in their lifetime. At their age, these 10 to 30-year-olds, these young people are prone to be idealistic and are much more motivated to lead towards fundamental behavioral shifts. How many times has the planet faced extinction? Does anybody know that? The planet has faced extinction. We have gone to the point where we've gone to what would actually be called extinct. We have gone through 5. Okay, that is coming from the Natural History Museum. Said there's been 5 great mass extinctions in the Earth's history that have changed the face of life on Earth. Now we know what caused some of them, but we don't know what caused all of them. Intellectuals who are saying that the optimal human population should be 1 to 2 billion aren't asking the right questions. Okay, we're talking about population here again. The question shouldn't be, what is the optimum human population on the planet if everybody lived like us? Instead, it is more productive to address the question, given that there are 7 billion people on the planet and 20 to 100 million other species, how should we be living? So the rich people of the world want the poor people to stop having kids, and the poor people want the rich people to stop consuming. The trend is to blame the other side, but the only way to get other people to change is to first change ourselves, to undergo our own personal metamorphosis. The first industrial revolution was fueled by the burning of coal and the invention of the steam engine to harness the energy of coal. Now we're going back about 200 years here. The communications revolution that accompanied this was the printing press, that allowed for the rapid dissemination of information amongst the learned classes, which led to a rapid growth in human population as death rates began to decline. One of the greatest contributions of the Western civilization to humanity was the invention of the scientific method. I didn't even know that the scientific method fell in that same time frame. I thought it had been around for a lot longer, but it hadn't. We're now in the midst of a great revolution in communications. Of course, we all know that, with the advent of the personal computer, the internet, and wireless communication technologies. A sort of revolution is already taking place as individuals can and do share information easily at hand and personally influence opinions worldwide. While all previous communication revolutions aggregated power in the hands of a few, the time is fundamentally different as individuals now are empowered. At the same time, an energy revolution is underway with solar and wind energy being harnessed to more cheaply help the poor get hooked up or taking off the expensive grid. And I think it was just 2 days ago I was reading in the paper that wind energy, that was the first day that wind energy had actually taken over the amount of energy put out there over any other source of energy in our country. And I thought, wow, that's unbelievable. So I can't remember where I read that, but I did read it. And maybe it wasn't in this country, but it was definitely out there. People begin to become untethered from the clutches of another and to be free to act independently. Several years ago, I was renting a house that was, Al, did you have a question, or were you just?
Well, my son is on the board of electric co-op.
Uh-huh.
And all of this personal generating,
Yeah.
like on the roofs
Yeah.
and
the solar and wind.
windmills
Yeah.
and so forth, that's screwing up the generating capacity because the generators can't afford to shut down. When they do, they crack.
Okay.
And have to be worked on,
Okay.
causing a great increase in costs again.
Okay. I'd never heard that before. When I was, it was probably about 20 years ago, I rented a house near where I had built my house a little bit later on. This house was off the grid. It wasn't part of the electrical system, so it couldn't have been causing any problems like you're talking there, Al. And I've never heard that before, and maybe someone from, that industry would know a lot more about that, but that's the first time I'd heard that. I lived for 1 year with no electricity, and yet I had everything I needed electrically because I believe it was maybe one or two solar panels, I can't remember, and I had 2 wind generators were enough to give me total independence, no cost or electricity whatsoever. I had a refrigerator. It was run with propane, actually. It worked great. It was totally silent, and then could run washer, dryer, could run all my TV, all my lights, and everything like that. And I thought it was wonderful. I had always thought I'd get back on it, and never have. Our present world situation is ripe for the metamorphosis. People are no longer interested in the authoritarian right versus left type, the judgmental, hierarchical political structures of the past, and are increasingly seeking the distributed, collaborative political structure of the future. So, reconnecting humans back to nature is about reconnecting humans back to reality by identifying and overturning all the absurd notions that underlie our current civilizations. Good morning, by the way, and happy Easter, Dan. It's about reconnecting humans back to our own selves. Nature is not only outside us, but it's also within. That is, dissolving the separation, the ego, which promotes our separation and thus connect within to what in Sanskrit is called the Atman. We can call it the spirit or the soul. And that's within us, of course. To become compassionate towards all life and thus fulfill our purpose as human butterflies, we must first practice to be self-compassionate. This metamorphosis is a deeply spiritual undertaking. The foundational texts of Hinduism are the Vedas. And the Vedas also have 2 incorporating texts called the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. And they're the oldest written accounts known to humans. In the Vedic view, the universe is built up of dualities, ego and the Atman, or spirit. Or we can look at it as the caterpillar-butterfly duality. It is the identification of the ego that drives the caterpillar side of us, driven by fear out of a sense of separation and isolation. It is the identification with Atman that drives the butterfly side of us, driven by the love that arises out of a sense of belonging. So how does unity, another new thought, fit in here with that duality, with that ego, Atman? Any thoughts on that? No. I'll just go on to say that Charles Fillmore was a close follower of Eastern thought. And New Thought is actually an extension of Eastern thought mixed along with metaphysical Christianity. I think that would be a very close definition of what New Thought is. According to the Vedas, we are each built with the exact potential for hate or for love, for crassness or greatness. It is up to us to choose who we want to be. Al?
Now the ego is frightened that it'll be separated from its source.
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Separated from its source. Now, can we get along without the ego? Not really. No. We're in human bodies, aren't we? Okay. We're always going to have the ego. And I'm going to be getting into that a little bit more in the talk here too, so I'm not going to go in that. But the ego is really, it's the what do I call it? Kind of the selfish I feeling in a way. Okay. Moments in time when we feel alienated, separated, angry, and hurt strengthen our ego. The stories that etch these moments in our memory then begin to further cloud our perception of reality. That is, until we become aware of these filters. Now, in my teachings anyway, I've, going to classes in spirituality, I've always kind of seen 3 filters and people teaching about 3 filters. And if you ever want to kind of play around with that, anytime you think a thought, if you say words, if you do a particular action, you can actually put these thoughts, words, and actions into these three filters: love, anger, and fear. And a lot of people say, well, you can put anger is actually a fear, okay? But it's still quite a bit different. So I'm gonna say that there are still these three filters anyway. Now, love, of course, is going to be that's our Atman side, right? That's our soul, that's our spirit. If you're thinking a thought, does it fit into love, anger, or fear? And you can kind of catch yourself, gee, am I really in the ego here, or am I in love's calling? Okay. Dan.
So how do some get lost in ego?
Excuse me?
How do some people get lost in their ego?
Oh boy, I tell you what, it's easy for me to do it. How do you get lost in your ego? I think sometimes it can be childhood familiarity, how you were raised. Sometimes I think the world is constantly reinforcing the ego. We have to work at it. We come to Unity. We do spiritual practices, we do affirmations, we do meditation, we do things that help us get back to our source. But if we don't do those things, I think it's a natural tendency to go to the ego. And so, and it's easy to get caught up in it, and one can spiral down. I often think, oh my gosh, you turn on the news, you see somebody shot somebody, someone was doing this, and they had been doing it for a long time, and it's like, how does someone get caught in the ego to the point where they spiral down so much that they don't care about another person's life, or they don't care about helping another person? I don't know.
How do we lose the inside of our divine selves? How do we lose that?
I don't think you 100% lose that, because I think there's always the spark of divinity in everybody, no matter how poorly they act or think. But I understand what you're saying. It appears that they do. But we are all divine.
Well, would you say that is along with your ego? Your ego is what drives you beyond what you should see as your divine self.
Yeah. I don't know.
Basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, with me,
Can we pass? And you had your hand up first? Okay. Okay, we'll go back to you then.
well, with me, whenever I first started coming to Unity, I didn't know anything at all about the ego. So I got involved with A Course in Miracles, and I really feel like I learned a lot about what the ego really is through A Course in Miracles.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. That's a really good comment, because I think I can say the same thing too. And not that I really hadn't heard of the ego. I think we've all heard of the ego, but we didn't understand what that really meant. And I think Course in Miracles is a great one for learning that. So can you pass the mic there?
I just wanted to touch on what I think of how people can get stuck in their ego.
Yeah.
And the pathways in our brain can really, when you think in fear or anger or negative thoughts, it almost makes like little trenches to where it's the easiest way for your thoughts to go. And
It's
you're right.
the highway.
Yes, it's like a highway. It's the easiest way to go. And you're right, though, that you can do things to change it.
Yeah.
And it's proven even that every time you resist thinking or speaking in anger, that you're actually reprogramming your brain to be more peaceful.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is all.
Actually, the fact that you took the time this morning to get up, get dressed, eat breakfast, get in your car, and come here, and you do it every Sunday, right? We do it because why are we doing that? We're trying to help, really, essentially, reprogram from sometimes the week's worth of ego stuff, and trying to keep that discipline, that balance. of God, right? We want to be all of those attributes of God, all the things that are good. It's a great thing. Go ahead, Stella is going to be. Hang on just one second, Gwenda.
That I started reading a couple of days ago. And what's interesting is this book was my husband's Conversations with God, and it was written in the early
Donald
90s.
Walsh. Yeah.
It is practically word for what you're saying today. And what I find unbelievable is he said there's only two true emotions, and that's love or fear.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting back with the filters again too, is that we have these filters. If you can just check your thoughts. I know we don't stop to think about our thoughts, do we? Often they just come. But if I'm thinking something, it's like, where do you put that? Is it we do, or you can at least look at it as putting that through a certain filter. Are you looking through rose-colored glasses? Are you looking through black-colored glasses? Are you seeing the light, in the white-colored glass? Are you in love? Are you seeing through the filter of love, or are you seeing through the filter of fear? Now, again, I put anger in there too, because I think anger is definitely under fear. I do, but I think it helps us to see. I can tell when I'm angry, and so that is a filter it's off track. All right. So I'm going to go on. Every time we meditate, practice affirmations, and connect with the spirit within, our sense of separation dissolves, and we feel one with the universe. Just as the ego is experienced as an accumulation of separation events, the Atma is experienced as an accumulation of integration events. It's love. How does this thought make you feel about a childhood filled with abuse or filled with love? Now, most of us have kind of a balance there, don't we? We had some things in our childhood that really affected us because there's some abuse or neglect or whatever that went on. That's typical. And we had a lot of love that may have been going on too. Some people experience more than the other. How does that affect us in being able to connect with our Atman or not? Anybody want to throw any experiences out there? Or Teresa?
Well, I was thinking about the ego first, but about your question is like, I think that I have a kind of, like you say, both love and abuse when I was a child. But as I grew up, I didn't know why I was angry. Yeah. I didn't know why I have these feelings of fear. I didn't know that. I was just living in a pilot mode. And when I started coming to Unity, because I think the universe take you wherever you need to go. And that's when I find out all these, things that I have, the hurt that hurts me and the fear and everything. But what I was thinking about when you talk about ego is that when I started, it was really easy for me to go back to the familiar thing instead of, because it hurts.
Yes.
It hurts sometimes, but after that it's really good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that God loves me.
Yeah.
The first time. I was like, with the first time that I understand that God loved me the way that and then I was not a bad person because I have, about whatever religion that I was practicing when I was a child, I was a sinner. So I carry all these things that saying I'm a bad person, because I don't do this and I don't believe this and blah, blah, blah. And so if I was really bad, so I act bad. I was not nice with people and things like that. So it's like, because it was all the pain that I was carrying, and when I found out that I'm beautiful, that I'm a child of God and things like that, then it's a beautiful change. But when I see with my friends, because they ask you, well, what do you do? What are you learning? What are you reading? And you tell them, I see the same reaction. They want to go back to the familiar thing that is the ego.
It's true. And, I don't know about you, but I know Dan was the microphone. Just 1 second though, Dan. I know in the denomination that I was raised in and the teachings that I was raised in, God was out there. I was separate from God. And so could I really get that feeling that God loved me? It was a harder stretch. It's a harder reach to feel that, no, I mean, here at Unity, what do we believe? God is within, right? God is here. We are no distant from God. Dan.
Well, I think so much depends on what we came in with regard to experience and learn.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're in a family of 4 kids and you all came through the same cycle, whatever,
Yeah.
and then all 4 went their own separate ways, or had different experiences through childhood or whatever. It's because you came with certain things that you needed to
And
experience.
that is so true. I agree
in this
with you, too.
lifetime.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. And from a Buddhist standpoint, you can do that now or do that the next time. But I think that's really a central theme as to why some people get stuck in the status
Yeah.
quo as well.
Yeah.
Because they become comfortable with who they are
Yeah.
and fear and have anger, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
those things they don't understand about themselves.
Yeah. I know, Gwenda, you can take the mic if you want. I don't know if you've ever seen examples of this. I've seen it many examples, but you might have a family of 3 kids, and the first kid is just an angel, and parents think we're the greatest parents ever, and then they have the next kid. And it's like, how could 2 people be so different? And yet they're in the same family, they were raised by the same people, and they were raised in the same way. So I think there is an element of coming into this world with different karma and, having to fulfill whatever you've brought into this world. So in our current scientific worldview, we're biased to recognize only the ego as the totality of the human experience and to ignore the Atman. Sigmund Freud. How many of you heard of Sigmund Freud? I think we all have, haven't we? He had much to do with the direction of our Western thought processes and how we continue to think and act today. It was Freud's ideas that were developed in the world consumer societies of the 20th century by his nephew, Edward Bernays. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Edward Bernays. When I was going through college and some of my psychology classes, I learned about Edward Bernays, but I kind of forgot about him a little bit. You've been impacted by Edward Bernays more than you know. He was born in the late 1800s, I think it was 1891. He just died in 1995. But he worked on a very psychological approach. He worked with the encouragement and support of large corporations. And I just wanted to look him up. I Googled him and just wrote down the first couple of sentences that they said about him. He was considered as pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda, one of the 100 most influential Americans of the 20th century. Bernays linked products to emotional desires and feelings in order to persuade people to behave irrationally, to consume things that they really didn't need. He got women to start smoking, to linking cigarettes as a phallic symbol of power. He dreamed up the many techniques of mass consumer persuasion that we are now confronted with thousands of times every day through advertising in all its forms. So, if you've ever seen an advertisement in your life, you can probably tie it to Edward Bernays because he was the one, and they really did. They paid him a lot of money to be able to connect to you in a way that you don't even know you're being connected to, right? So anytime you're being influenced, do you ever sometimes, you're just, all of a sudden you're singing this jingle from a Wrigley's bubble gum, commercial. That's Edward Bernays. Okay.
This bud's for you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And we see those things hundreds, if not thousands of times every day. You're driving down the street, how many billboards do you see? You turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, you look on your phone, it's everywhere. That's the influence that Bernays, who was the nephew of what was this? I just said his name, Sigmund Freud, yeah. Okay. I'm kind of running out of time here, and I'm only halfway done with my lecture. How does that happen? I tell you what, I'm just going to try and quickly get through this, get through a couple things here, and then we'll call it quits. But the Vedas propose that the Atman within us is permanent, while all other aspects of the human experience are impermanent. The Atman can be viewed as a ripple in an eternal ocean of consciousness that takes up temporary residence in a material body that is impermanent and constantly flowing. The Vedas states that the Atman never dies and returns back to the ocean of consciousness when the body dies. The body is controlled by a mind and gets its inputs and performs its actions through its various senses. According to the Vedas, the caterpillar is enslaved by the ego. The caterpillar has a fluid mind that is constantly invoking new desires and commanding the intellect to find ways to satisfy those desires. In a caterpillar, the intellect is the servant of the mind, which is the servant of the ego. In a butterfly, the ego is diminished and even non-existent, while the mind is steady and solid, well controlled by the discriminating intellect. In a butterfly, the mind is a servant of the intellect. The butterfly is oriented inwards in service of the Atman, and through it, all creation. Thus it has a purpose larger than itself, which becomes the source of its deep-rooted happiness. And that's what we believe here at Unity, don't we? We believe in a purpose larger than our own individual self, right? That's what makes us expand. It's our expansion. It's everything changes when we can go that route. Caterpillars are driven by fear, especially the fear of death. Butterflies are driven by love, especially the love of life. The caterpillar-butterfly dichotomy is thus intimately tied to the fear-love duality which resides in the medulla oblongata of the reptilian brain of most complex beings. This is fundamental to all life forms, as we needed fear to escape a predator, and we all needed love to take care of our babies. So that's there in us inside our brain. According to a neuroanatomist, the right hemisphere of the brain is devoted to processing present moment reality and makes one feel intensely connected with the universe around itself. The left hemisphere is about judging the present moment using stored memories from the past to filter out the enormous inputs received by the brain at each instant. It is also about making predictions and plans for the future. The ego resides in the past and in the future and dissolves in the light of the present moment reality. Thus, the caterpillar is ruled by the left hemisphere of the brain, while the butterfly empowers the right while using the left as a tool. So, Dr. Rao's thesis that in our modern industrial culture we deliberately train all our babies to grow up to be caterpillars, even though they are born butterflies. Now, as I said, I really only got through just maybe a little over half of what I was going to talk about. And this is only from 3 chapters in Carbon Dharma. It's really an incredible book. And next time I talk, I'll probably go ahead and try and touch on some of these points that I missed out, and then go on, because he goes on to talk about how we can, as individuals, empower ourselves and in a positive way change the world, okay? How we can go on. And he's saying you can't go around pointing the finger, you can't go around throwing shame and guilt on other people. When you have that external force, what happens is when you take the coercion away, they go right back to where they always thought before, don't they? And so it has to be done through love. And really, he's talking about these things are not going to be done so much through government demands. They're going to be done through spiritual practice, and they're going to be done through spiritual organizations. And that's exactly what we're doing with Planet Unity. And I want to applaud ourselves for really jumping in on something such as this. And all of us, can take part in this. Dan is doing a great job by doing our plants at Planet Unity and has been for years now. So if you want some great plants, they're going to be here at Planet Unity on Saturday. Of course, on Friday, we're going to be doing music. We have a brand new stage out here. We're going to be having, I know, lots of things to drink, things to eat. And the fire, what do they call themselves?
He's a fire twirler.
Okay, fire twirler, okay. We have a lot of activities going on the weekend. This is our biggest event for the year, so make it if you're not going to be helping with it, make sure to participate in it, because it really is something to see, and it's something to be a part of too. So I think I'm going to go ahead, and we've got 1 minute. I just want to give a few announcements here before we get in our circle. I want to thank you all for coming out. I always love doing the class. I always love coming to all the speakers. This is the first time I've spoken in months, actually. And for a long time, I was going through a process where my mother was in transition. And so I would have to head on over to Illinois every other week, it seemed like, and spend a lot of time with her. And for the last year, that's what I've been doing too. So I've tended not to want to put a lot of more pressure on myself for getting up and talking, but it is a pleasure to get up here in front and see your smiling faces and to feel that energy, so thank you for that. Next week we have Karen Krago, and she's doing part 2 of her first talk that she did just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, and that was on poetry again. She is our poetry specialist, and it's always great to see her, so I hope you can get back to that. I don't have the announcements. Brandy, as far as I know, is still in the hospital dealing with an unknown illness that they're trying to figure out. And she's the one that always puts all these things together, and we love her and miss her so much. So put her in your thoughts and prayers. I hope she's listening this morning. Brandy, if you are, we love you. We want you back. Get well, figure out what's going on, and be here. But she's always the one who put together the announcements for me to read, so I don't have that.
They're doing the egg hunt.
Okay, the egg hunt.
They're setting up for the garage sale.
Okay, the yard sale that we're going to be doing and after church we're going to be taking down all the chairs, right? So help out with that if you can.